Hi there, my name is Aaleya and today we are at the Factory Media Center in Hamilton. The media industry has been introduced to be biased and very difficult to approach. It's very intimidating to journalist students, and many are dropping out of the courses. Today I have with me Jeff Boulton, who has been in the media industry for 20 years. Jeff Boulton, let me ask you, why media?
Why media? Why not media? I'm a storyteller, and the media to me gives an opportunity to tell stories, and I find it exciting. It's creative. It also, I don't know, just it is for me the best way to be able to tell stories. And when you say media these days, there's all kinds of media, right? So you've got your video cameras, you've got your audio, you've got people putting podcasts out. You have the internet, which is a nice delivery system where anybody can put media out there and have a voice. And I just think it's an exciting time to be involved.
Okay, so what is it about storytelling that is so significant to you?
Well, to be fair, I think that it's significant to everybody. I think that since the dawn of time, we've been telling stories, and it's our way of teaching. It's our way of leaving a mark, for us to tell our story, so that there is a legacy to move forward. I think that it's born and bred in our DNA, and right back to the days of cave drawings and telling stories around the campfire, and just the way we tell stories has changed. It used to be an oral tradition, and now it's moved into recorded permanent media. I'm compelled to tell stories because I'm compelled by emotion, and I want to move people. Sometimes it's a good way that I move them emotionally, sometimes it's a bad way, but ultimately it's about impacting people and having an impact.
So you are talking about change. So when you look back at the day when you graduated from high school, what was the drive? Why journalism? Why storytelling?
Well, I wanted to get into storytelling because I felt that, to be honest, I was a bully, and I was bullied in school. I was a nerd. I got picked on, and I didn't feel that I had. If people only knew who I was, if I could only tell my story, and when I got into playwriting to start off with, and that was my way of telling my story of letting the world know how I felt inside. And I thought it was just super cool, and I thought, I need to get into this as the thing that I do. I need to be able to tell stories, and when I started working at the CBC, it was a chance to be involved in people telling stories in a way that there was this whole organization that existed to tell the stories of those who couldn't tell their own stories, and I thought that was really amazing, fascinating, and it's just been my thing ever since.
So now that it has been 20 years that you have been in the media industry, what has changed in your storytelling?
In my own personal storytelling, I find that the first stories I told were about myself, to discover myself, who I was as a person. I find that as I get older, I'm about helping others tell their own stories. So it becomes not selfless, but I'm more interested in what other people have to say than what I have to say, and I think when I evolved to that point, it became about helping my team around me tell the stories that they find compelling, and ultimately, if you don't find the story compelling, you're not going to connect with it, and you're not going to give it. You're not going to serve it justice, and so I love working with a group of people and enabling them to tell the stories that really impassion them.
Yeah, it is a very passionate profession. How do you feel about the business aspect of storytelling?
Well, I am a business person. I run my own company, so I understand that there are economics that have to be involved. I firmly believe that pure journalism, as it needs to exist, is it shouldn't have to be a moneymaker, but documentary storytelling, for example, I still have to make it financially viable. And there is a system in place that allows me to tell stories and finance those stories, and that's great. But ultimately, I'm not about letting the economic side of running a business interfere with the storytelling side of the business. They have to go hand in hand. They have to work together somehow. But
I'm sorry.
No, okay, go ahead.
And what do you have to say to those people who are letting that be influenced, the quality of?
Oh God, that's such a large and loaded question. Because you have your big corporations that now own all the news bodies that are out there, and I caution them when they come up in front of, say, the CRTC here in Canada, and they say, you know what, we want to run less news because, news is not making us any money, it's costing us money. You're using the airwaves. The airwaves belong to the taxpayers. We're kindly allowing you a license to use those airwaves to make money, and the small fee that we ask in return is that you provide news, unbiased, straightforward news reporting, and that's really, really important. And I don't think they're doing that anymore. I don't think we as a people, as a tax-paying population in Canada, are standing up and saying, enough is enough. We need unfettered news. We don't need the economics to get in the way. Meet your mandate. From a documentary storyteller point of view, it becomes extremely hard because there is such a small pot of money out there, and it tends to be those who've been doing it for a while that get access to that money, and we need more new voices on the scene, because that's the only way that we can continue to grow this industry, is to allow other people to tell their stories as well. And so that's part of my focus as an old guy these days, is giving back to the community by trying to enable some of the younger storytellers to come up and tell the stories that interest them. And I'm sorry that was long-winded, but that's my answer.
Okay, and how did it feel to transition from being employed into someone who runs his own media industry and hires people and works on its own? How did that feel?
Exhilarating. To be fair, I left the CBC at a time when people didn't like working there anymore. I was going through a lot of crazy transition. So it was a real relief for me to get out of that environment. Starting my own company was exhilarating and frightening. Because running a business is way more complicated than anybody ever assumes when they start to do it. Because you can make it a full-time job just running the business, and that kind of took me out of storytelling myself a little bit. I became the business guy and not the story guy, and so that was a little depressing at first. But that's when I transitioned into being able to enable others to tell their stories. And so if I never tell a single story, I'm happy, because I'm focusing on being able to allow, for example, you to come in and pitch me an idea and say, okay, let's go run with this, let's turn it into something. I love hiring young, new talent. I love seeing the excitement and the passion that they bring. I wish I could do more of it, than I do. And so that's quite exciting for me as well. Part of my giving back, I feel like I can contribute back to the community. So
is that why you became a businessman?
I became a business person, I think, because I like to be in charge of my own destiny. Like I said, I was saying earlier, I was at the CBC at a really bad time of transition, budget cuts and people getting let go and all kinds of craziness. The stress was high, and I just didn't feel I had any control over my destiny. And my purpose of starting my own company was to have control over what it was that I got involved with and worked on.
Okay, so going back to the fact that media industry is considered to be biased and everything, is there any message that you would like to send out to those who are wanting to become a storyteller and who are passionate young talents?
I would say that if you march into CTV to get a job and they don't give you a job, don't get disheartened by it. Because there are so many opportunities out there, so many ways to get your story out there online. That's changed. The internet has changed the media industry for the good in many, many, many ways. For the bad in others, but for the good in many ways. So just keep pushing. Keep trying, keep pushing, and keep telling stories. And eventually, if you're good at what you do, people will start to listen to your stories, and people will start to take note. That's my advice. Nice and simple.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.